So you talk about the personality factors that may help drive happiness, correlation between certain character traits and well-being. And the couple that I'm just going to throw out at you: honesty, humility, emotionality, that's not so good, extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness. But we don't like neuroticism. Okay, that's half of our respective countries. Emotionality, I mentioned. Why? Why? Like, what does it mean, emotionality? And neuroticism, that seems like an obvious one, but is there anybody who thinks that that's important to well-being?
Well, so what you're describing there is typically you have the biggest, if you like, taxonomy of personality traits is known as the Big Five, and you mentioned, all of those Big Five. Big Five just means that on the greatest amount of variance that you see across people in terms of their personality types can be captured by those 5 traits. So something like agreeableness, it doesn't take a fancy psychologist to understand that the higher I score on agreeableness, the more likely I am to be happy, the more neurotic I am. I mean, I was just today, to link what you just asked me to something on social media. I don't know if you've ever been exposed to the content of Rob Reiner. Have you, Megyn?
Oh my God. He's an insane lunatic.
I mean, it doesn't take Gad Saad to have the psychological acuity to understand that that's not going to be a pathway to happiness. And actually, I wrote to him. I responded. I said, hey, man, life is short. Every moment is precious. Maybe now I engaged in some shameless plugging. I then shared a link to my book. I said, you really need to read this book because, stop navigating endlessly in this, political vitriol. Of course, there's room for political discussions, but if every single minute of the day, every second, so that speaks to the question when you mentioned about emotionality. I mean, it can't be a healthy thing to be. I mean, you are one of the luckiest person, right? You're a Hollywood person. You've had a very successful career. I get it. The Republicans are Nazis and Donald Trump is Hitler. Move on, man. Read a book, exercise, hug your wife. But, he is stuck. He's a neurotic, emotional freak. And I'm sure that he's probably scoring on the highest end of the most unhappy, miserable people alive.
That is so true. Gosh, you're right. You can see it on certain people. Now, what about extroversion? Does that mean introverts are less happy than extroverts? Is that the way we use this term here?
So the way that I think the mechanism works there is that by my being more extroverted, it opens me up to greater sociality, more opportunities to interact with, meaningfully with others. And therefore, by being extroverted, it inoculates me against a sense of social isolation and loneliness and so on. So I think that's the pathway by which that particular trait works. And I'll give you a snippet of that just happened to me in Portugal. My family and I went on a 16-day trip.
Pictures.
Oh, did you? Isn't that incredible?
It looked amazing. Photos? Yes, it looked amazing.
And by the way, my wife told me to tell you, remind her that we had a similar Guillaume story. Not quite as incredible as your Guillaume story. But her luggage was lost and it took 3 days for Air Canada to find us in the Algarve, which is on the southern coast of Portugal. So we empathize with whatever you went through, although your story was perhaps more harrowing. But in any case, once we finished our first 12 days on the beach, we then went on to Lisbon. And on our first day in Lisbon, as we were kind of walking around, somewhat tired, it was incredibly hot, I saw a gentleman look at me and smile and say hello. I figured, maybe it was presumptuous of me. I thought, maybe he recognized me. He's a fan. But then I quickly realized that he hadn't recognized me. He just looked at me and said, do you mind if I ask a request? I said, sure, go ahead. He said, well, I'm working on a project where I just identify people who have interesting faces and take their photos. And then I ask them, what are their 2 secrets to happiness? I said, oh my goodness. Well, it might interest you to know that I'm an author and I have a forthcoming book on happiness. And then we ended up spending about 25 minutes, Megyn, just the serendipitous moment where 2 strangers are locked in this really honest, authentic conversation. And I don't think that conversation would have happened had I not been an extroverted person, because I probably would have not sent the cues that would have given him the courage to approach me. But I have an open face. I am smiley. I try to say hello to everyone, even strangers. And that gave him the courage to approach me. And then we had a wonderful moment together.
All right, I'm going to try that. I think I have more of a resting bitch face. We had somebody come on recently to say you have to be friendly, you have to have lots of people in your life, lots of friends. And Abby and I are both like, we're going to be dead soon. We don't like people. So I'm going to work on that. Okay, I got it.
Do you think, before you go on, do you think that might have been a protective mechanism that you developed early in life? Because already women have to put up a more defensive shell when they're out in public. If you're an attractive woman, then you even have to do that more, because if you now smile innocently at a man, just innocently, he is much more likely to attribute that as meaning that there is sexual interest, whereas you're just trying to be nice.
No, because I did not grow up attractive. I was an unattractive child, which was a gift to me. That was actually a blessing, to grow up with an unattractive face and body, to be honest. So I had to rely on my personality. I was actually more extroverted, I would say, as a kid than I am as an adult. And it has nothing to do with looks as an adult. I think it's just, you live in New York City. Of course, I was for 14 years at Fox News while living on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, kind of like your circumstance, where you're this heterodox thinker in the middle of, academia. And so you just kind of get more guarded. You just try not to make as much eye contact and keep your head down and, your mouth shut. It's not a great side effect of those choices, but I will say this, Gad, having now moved out of the Upper West Side, out of Fox News, and into a sort of different line of work, I am much happier. And I actually am a little bit more open to people approaching me and to me reaching. Maybe the guy would have stopped me, maybe he wouldn't have. But it's good to know that it's good for us to say yes to that, if with our face and or our voices. Look, you did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people and pulled your business through the pandemic. And now doing the tough thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Government funds are available to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. This is not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. The program's complicated, but no one knows more about it than the CPAs and tax experts at covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front. They do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify, even those who took PPP loans, and even if you had increases in your sales. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Now let covidtaxrelief.org help get you up to $26,000 per employee. Visit covidtaxrelief.org. That's covidtaxrelief.org, covidtaxrelief.org. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.